Welcome to the Gray State Revolution. The forbidden ones are waking up. Now it's time to invoke a new revolution to the socialist scam to take over America and discover what it will take and what we can actually do about it to conquer the left. Direct from Ridge Runner Studios, here is your host, David Big Dave Ezel.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's had a good week. It is July 9th, 2022, and oh my God, what the last 2 weeks have shown us. We've got a lot to discuss today. I've got a long show today, so we're going to get a message from my sponsor so I can get to it.
Do you have a friend or family member you're having trouble buying a gift for? You just can't find the right gift for the person who has everything? Then go to Rockin' Magnolia Customs, a place where you can pick out and design the perfect gift for that special someone. That's rockinmagnoliacustoms.com or find them on Facebook at Rockin' Magnolia Customs.
And remember, that is rockinmagnoliacustoms.com. There's no G in rockin', and the customs is always with a K. So what we're going to talk about today is we the people. These are probably the three most powerful words in American history syntax. These words were significant because we know their true meaning. We know that these are the words that binds the hearts of Americans, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. From the beginnings of our nation, there were many times that simple words gave us meaning. They gave us something to believe in, and they gave us all an individual meaning with a collective purpose. But the last 6 years we as a nation have stood by and not really done anything to help alleviate or change things for ourselves or our children or our grandchildren. I've said many times before that you must look to the past to see the future. So I'll be reciting some words from one of our great leaders from the beginnings of our country. And I'm not plagiarizing, unlike our fearless leader, but I'll be tying it together with my topic. And you'll know that his syntax is as relevant today as they were when they were spoken in the late 1700s. So where do we find ourselves in 2022? We are now become a country that's unraveling at its seams. People here become so woke that we can't even see the type of political correctness that we're in right now is destroying our nation from the inside out. Just like the Communist Manifesto said it would do to take over our country. We've done things like we define our friends by their political affiliations. And we divide ourselves currently over people's choices in the bedroom. It's kind of like the statement in the news thing where the best 3 minutes in television history when he says, why do we declare war on poor people instead of poverty? That's probably the most powerful statement he's had in there. And that's what we're doing. That's what the government's doing. But what I'm going to do right now is remind you, Patrick Henry's speech in 1775 is probably the absolute most defining speech in our history. So I'm going to read a few excerpts from it. In vain, after these things, may we indulge the fond hope of peace and reconciliation. There is no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve and violate those inestimable privileges for which we've been so long contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, and which we have pledged ourselves near to abandon to the glorious object of our contest shall be obtained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left for us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone, but it is to the vigilant, the active, and the brave. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains have been forged. Their clanking can be heard on the plains of America. The war that is coming is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has already actually begun. The next gale that sweeps in from the north will bring our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren, are we ready in the field? Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death. Give me liberty or give me death. You know what he said? Screw it, give me liberty. All right, I'm done. I can't do it no more. I had an outline for today's show. I'm not even going to follow it now. I just can't. There's so much going on. I've got to get this out. What in the absolute fuck is wrong with all you conservatives who have for years complained about the liberals and how far left they were going and how stupid this stuff they were doing was working against what is you called quote unquote an American ideal? And all I've seen since the Roe v. Wade decision was handed down is you think you've got major control over this abortion issue and you're running just as far right as the Democrats ran left. How's that getting anything done? It's not. It's not. It's causing division in America. And this is as if on cue from our current administration. The Christian fundamentalists were the pro-choice crowd a little over a year ago. I want you to listen for one damn minute and realize you hijacked my body, my choice during the immunization craze to keep from going to get your meeting session and get your shot. And yet now you're going to look down on a bunch of people who say my body, my choice when it comes to abortion. I'm not for it, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's used as a means of birth control as what it was intended for, but it was a federal law of the land for almost 50 years. We've had this procedure for almost 50 years and it's nothing like it used to be. Now they mainly send pills in the mail and the FDA mails them out and you take one pill this week and then about 2 weeks later you take another pill and it causes a period to start. It's actually a more natural way of doing things instead of having the washouts with the saline, which is what people's been against all these years, and murder. And if that's not enough for all you Christian fundamentalists trying to run these states and these legislatures, now you're trying to get rid of birth control. What in the absolute hell are you thinking? When are you going to draw the lines and stop and just get some damn common sense? And to the Department of Justice, I have a question. If the governors of these states are using these Christian rules and binding the people in their states within their borders from even leaving to go get an abortion, have they not in fact formed a theocracy within our country, within the states? It's not the states' rights to form a theocracy when the Constitution of the combined collective says separation of church and state. Now, you can hide it under the guise of law. You can hide it under the guise of what the people want. And that's fine if that's what you think you want to do. But let me tell you something. You just were using my body, my choice a little over a year ago. Not to be able to get the shot the government was requiring people to get. And it takes me back to Online Nursing Podcast where I said Republicans caught the car and they're not going to know what to do with the car, talking about the abortion issue. Well, hell, I was wrong. Now, I'm so grateful that before all this happened that I left the Republican Party and became an independent. So y'all go ahead and y'all argue about that till the cows come home. But you got to understand that the chickens are coming home to roost now. You're fighting with each other. You're concerned about what's going on with all these other issues that don't make a damn at all. You're more worried about that than personal choice. And all medical and health issues are all personal choice until it infringes on your brain. You think it interferes with your social manifestation of what you deem to be Christianity. I'm not. I'm not. You can have all these free arguments you want. In the meantime, the government is letting y'all fight amongst yourself, and they're trying to take over the country. They're trying to keep you divided, and it's working like it was intended to work. First, it was BLM and versus white supremacy. Then it was vaxxed versus unvaxxed. And now it's Roe versus Wade. Wake up. And quit falling into the trap that we are a democracy. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. And you ask me, why is this so important? Because as long as the federal government keeps you distracted from what's really going on, because their worst fear is that we actually all get along. Because once we all start getting along, we start seeing through all of the bullshit. I've been watching this January 6th committee political farce created by the current government. It's a witch hunt. You have the right as an American, if you feel that your government is being tyrannical and not doing what they're supposed to, you have a right to storm the Capitol and get rid of the damn leadership that's currently in the House and in the Senate, because they're not doing the will of the people. But they don't know what the will of the people is, because they've kept you fighting so long, nobody knows what your wills are anymore. And to the January 6th committee, if any of y'all hear this, Benny Thompson, Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, anybody on that committee, y'all want to know what a damn insurrection looks like? Why don't you go and find videos of them storming the presidential palace in Sri Lanka? That's what insurrection looks like. That's what a takeover looks like. We're not talking about 600 people storming the Capitol and doing damage, and half of them were invited in to do it. And I think about these other countries. I think about the Dutch, the Germans, the French. Everybody's they're fighting. They're standing up doing what they want. Where did they draw their inspiration from? They drew it from Canada. Not the United States. They're laughing at us. We're still fighting a war amongst ourselves. In the meantime, they're starting to stand up to the powers that be all over the world. Sri Lanka, the Dutch, the Germans, the French. It's catching on like wildfire. They're standing up for their people. And what do you think the founding fathers were doing? Do y'all not even realize that most of the founding fathers were under the age of 30? And I'll just have to tell y'all, the generation under the age of 30 right now has got to be the stupidest generation ever. And as a Gen Xer, I'm a Gen Xer, but as a Gen Xer, it's our fault. It's our fault. Because we're kind of independent. We were the latchkey generation. It's true. We had a key to the house at 7 years old. We would get home from school and go in and cook us something to eat. Yeah, I said cook, like over fire. I can remember coming in from school before I did my homework, getting some grease, putting it in a pan, getting the flour out, putting salt and pepper in there, and making me some SOS. to eat before I started doing my homework. So now we've got a whole generation of folks that can't even write, read cursive, or drive a stick shift. And that's our fault. Completely our fault. We've turned a damn country into a country of wussies. Easy to be taken over. I mean, these people over in the European Union, they're seeing through the bullshit because they're standing together. And how effective could we be if we put aside our political differences and we put aside our differences with each other long enough for the government to see that we can see through their bullshit? Would you have people that are 80 and 90 years old running the country telling you what to do? I mean, if you think about it, that's a generational gap that shouldn't be there. It shouldn't. And we got a president that has to have cue cards to be able to know when to sit down and when to talk. Let me tell you how it works. This podcast is called the Gray State Revolution. And by definition, the gray state is the deal between a police state and a dictatorship. And they're well on their way. We're living in the gray state now. So while we're fighting each other and there are riots going on all over the place and everybody's fighting with each other, here's how it's going to work. This is what the government has planned to do. The government will take over because we're too busy fighting with ourselves. They'll use the guise of martial law to do it. And once they have the martial law in place, they're going to turn around. They're not going to go to the military because the military won't turn against their own people. They were foreign and domestic. Fighting the power is foreign and domestic. Well, that would be a domestic issue. They'll have martial law in place, and once that's settled down, then they'll turn it into a democracy. Because as much as we're a democracy, they want us to think we use democratic means to get things done, but we're a constitutional republic. That means the states have the power and tell the federal government what to do. And the people in the states have the power to tell their leaders what to do. That's how a constitutional republic works. So they'll turn it into a democracy, and then the democracy will enforce their rules by using the police. That would be the police state. And the police state always leads to the dictatorship. This is the gray state, and that's the plan. We've been told in the Communist Manifesto that that's the plan. It's been the plan since the beginning. And for all you Christian conservative people, I've got news for you too. I'm going to find it and post it on my Facebook page and post it on my Ridge Runner Studios Facebook page. Speech Adolf Hitler gave, where it talks about how the country was founded on Christians. That's Adolf Hitler, folks. And what was he? Oh no, he went under the guise of a Christian conservative. So the gray state isn't necessarily always liberal. Sometimes it's conservatives. We've got to draw a fine line. And it's where do you want to be when the line's drawn? Where your authority's going to lie. When the people you say you care about so much, the children, all of that. Are you going to be willing to kill for your kids? You say you can. You say you will. But will you really be able to do it? Will you really be able to walk behind somebody and cut their damn throat if that's what it comes to? I think you probably wouldn't. I just don't think you would. Now everybody says that what I'm talking about is just a theory, and I bought into the conspiracy theories. Well, I bought into the conspiracy theory that somehow or another they got extra ballots into the ballot boxes. Well, it may or may not be true. The documentary of 2000 Mules, it may or may not be true. But the problem is, whether it's true or not, the one thing that film did was prove that it's possible. That it's way more than possible. And not only did they prove that, they proved that it could be done by either side. And we're still sitting here in the middle saying who was right and who was wrong. It's got nothing to do with right and wrong anymore. It's got to do with the people, the will of the people, and the will of the government. I've been seeing all of this stuff on TikTok and Facebook and all that, where the Supreme Court's overturned the presidential election, and they've got Trump walking with the Secret Service that's still around him because he's a former president, and he gets the Secret Service detail for the rest of his life. And he's still carrying a nuclear football. It's a briefcase, but it's not the nuclear football. It's his briefcase. I mean, they carry stuff for him all the time. He's a former president. Whether or not you like him, whether or not you agree with what he said on his tweets and all that stuff, he's still a former president. And I hear about the Supreme Court overturning the presidential election. There was no case going up. There is a case going up in the next session. It's Moore versus Harper. And what it seeks to do is to turn all the voting right back to the states. I mean, that's kind of what they're expected to rule on. That's how they're expected to rule. Having a 6-3 conservative majority, that's probably how they will rule. And everybody's taking that as that they're overturning the election. No, in a constitutional republic, the elections are run by the states. Some of you people need to go back and take American government or civics, or just read and find out what is going on. I hope they do turn it back to the states. And then when the state constitutions violate the federal constitutions, then they'll be ruled uncertifiable, and their votes won't count. Then the people of that state will stand up against their government. But everybody's so scared that they're going to bastardize everything. They've already done that. That's nothing new. We're sitting here, and I appreciate the fact that everybody's got their opinions, but they're like assholes. Everybody's got one. But what we're not sitting here saying, I think my kids need the absolute right to grow up in a country that I grew up in, where we did have our differences, but we could talk and find common ground. You realize they have gone so far left and so far right, there is no common ground anymore? And these parties wonder why. There's been a report out in the last couple of weeks that said there's over 1 million people that switched to the Republican Party. Well, I bet that million drops again. I bet it's not going to be 1 million. The largest growing voting sect in the country is turning into independents. I don't necessarily, there's some true blue dog Democrats platforms that are actually good ideas. I don't necessarily believe in the way they would implement them, but they're actually good ideas. And just like there are sides of the Republicans that have good ideas, I don't like the way they would implement them either. But they shouldn't have total control, neither should the Democrats. We've become too docile in this country. Bunch of wussies. That's what we've turned into. Oh, you don't even know what you're talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. It's not hard to read the Second Amendment and say the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The most important word, syntax, in the Second Amendment is shall not be infringed. That means the states can't make rules to infringe on your rights to keep and bear arms. The federal government can't make rules on your rights to keep and bear arms, and they're still trying the best they can to find some way to control it, because that's what you overthrow a government with. New York and California are scrambling right now. As soon as a new law is passed, somebody ought to automatically sue it, because it will fall under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court's ruling. They basically said, the Constitution says it shall not be infringed, and you don't have a right to infringe on that. Maybe the Supreme Court is saying we have ventured far enough out of the constitutional republic into a democracy that's time to go back. It's time to be the country that we were formed to be. It's time to be the leader of the free world like we were at the end of World War II, before we let Lyndon Johnson put us in Vietnam. And that's where the fundamental change in America started then, the hippie generation. That's where the fundamental change started in this country. And not all the ideas are bad. I think we should. I think the government, the federal government, using the public taxpayer dollars, should fund soup kitchens, homeless shelters. And for God's sakes, I think we should be housing all of our veterans in public housing. They should be first choice, and then the public be second choice. It's not necessarily the best ideal, but it would work. And in the meantime, if the Christian fundamentalists want to get involved, instead of worrying about who's using what birth control, dear Lord have mercy. Y'all want them not to have abortions, but you don't want them to have a way to keep from getting pregnant. That doesn't make any sense. Theocracy, control, and rule, that's what that is. It didn't work for the Byzantine Empire. It's not going to work here. There's got to be a middle somewhere. We're going to have to talk and not argue. We're going to have to talk and not fight. And we're going to have to talk and not burn damn cities to the ground. It's not. There are a certain part of the population in America that are tired of the fucking politics. Tired of everybody running their fucking mouth and giving us what their opinion and idea is on the news. Nobody gives a shit. Just give us a simple choice. Choices matter. New Jersey's choice may be different than Mississippi's choice. New Mexico's choice may be different than Minnesota's choice. But the point is, there should be a common ground. And I keep bringing up Reagan and Tip O'Neill. They were as far apart in the foundations of the parties they were representing at the time. Reagan was the president, Tip O'Neill was Speaker of the House. But you know how they solved their problems? They went and got a bottle of scotch and they went into the back room of the Oval Office and told them, we're not to be disturbed, and when we come out of here, we'll have a plan. And they did that on a lot of issues. And we were a better country for it. Nobody got exactly what they wanted, but everybody got some of what they wanted. And everybody was happy that they'd found a way to work it out. Because that's what we used to do, was work shit out. Now you can't have an idea without somebody saying, oh no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Well, no, I'm not wrong. It's just my idea. What's your idea? There's some commonalities there. Find your commonalities and work your way out. That's how you're supposed to problem solve. Not get the squad and they represent what I think. Okay, well, that's fine. They can. That's what you elected them for. And I elected the people that I elected to represent my thoughts and feelings. I mean, none of them I would vote for again. I mean, I think if you want a fundamental change in the country, and the right and the left want everything to calm down. There are people on both sides that are sick and tired of the arguing. It's become bullshit. It's interfering with our kids playing on the playground, and y'all think it's supposed to be that way. We're turning into an isolationist country on our damn own. No, I don't think we should be involved in policing the world. But I do think where there is injustice and civil rights, human rights violations, that we should have some say, like don't give them any money. What chaos would the world fall into if everybody in America said quit sending billions of dollars to the Ukraine and us not know what it is? Then it comes out that the president released 1 million barrels of damn oil to go to India and China. And then the company that the oil got turned over into China is being run by Hunter Biden. And I've not heard anything about an investigation into that. I hadn't heard anybody call for one, including the Republicans, because they're just involved in it as the Democrats are at this current time. You want to start a revolution in this country? Vote every damn incumbent out. And then fire all of the underling staffers from their office and hire all new people. That's how you fundamentally change a country. It goes back to all federal politics are local. Vote everybody out. Vote every school board member out. Change your board of aldermen or whatever type city government you got or county government you got, and vote them all out. Put all new ones in there. Vote all the mayors out. Put new ones in there. Put in people from the community that actually have good ideas. Screw the party. Screw it. George Washington told us in his farewell address to the nation that political parties would destroy this country, and look where we are. We fail to listen. We fail to listen to the past, and we fail to listen to each other. That's where we are, folks. I'm not going to stop. I've had to take care of some things personally. That's why there's been long pauses between my episodes. But it's over. I'll be here every week now. You don't have to have a lot of time. Usually the shows run about an hour. I've been running about 40 minutes. I'm not even going to make it to 40 minutes this week. I think I've said enough to give you a lot to think about. Where are you going to be? To the ones listening to the show now, where are you going to be? What are you going to be doing? Who are you going to be doing it with? Are you going to take the time to go out next door and meet your neighbor and say, hey, is everything okay with you? Because right now, people in this country are hurting. And they're hungry. And they don't have enough gas to get to work. And people are having to choose between work and food. Well, they've got you preoccupied there so they can do just whatever the hell they want to do. And screw you at the same time. And not even use any Vaseline. So where are you going to draw your line in the sand? When are you going to stand up and say enough is enough? This ain't the country I grew up in. By no means is it the country I grew up in. And I'll be damned if I'm going to set aside any longer and let it deteriorate to the point there is no coming back from it. My kids are grown. I'm fortunate to have them raised in an era in which I was raised. My kids can write cursive. My oldest one can drive a stick shift, thank God. My youngest one's learning how. Where are you going to stand? You going to stand with the right and the just? You going to stand with the liberals? You going to stand with the Republicans and the conservatives? Or are you going to stand in the middle and tell them, straighten your shit up? It ain't about you. Our government is nothing but 535 members of the narcissist party. If they could, they would vote just like the Germans did in World War II and give one person all the power in the world to do what they want to do, just like Hitler. And I'll be damned if I let that happen either. Choices are hard. Choices are difficult. But once you know where you stand in your head, you know where you'll stand in the public. And that's the thought I'll leave you with today. What's your choice going to be?